It's Patrick, founder of Screenplay app, the app for student screenwriters. Every week, I'll take a different article from the Screenplay app blog and share with you in audio form. What is show and don't tell? Show and don't tell is the ability to visualize your story rather than explaining it. As you write more screenplays to get people to read your work, you will likely get feedback with the wording show and don't tell. At first, this might be very confusing to you, but it's great advice. As a screenwriter, you are writing in a visual medium, which means what you write on the page will eventually be translated into a visual medium. You'll also have to keep in mind that your reader will be a lot more engaged in your writing if it's something they can visualize. Show and don't tell is also a way to show the depth of your characters. Show and don't tell allows your characters to display emotions, and emotions allow for better storytelling. You will not master the ability to show and don't tell overnight. This is something that takes a lot of practice. Even veteran screenwriters tend to occasionally tell rather than show. What you have to do is try to catch as many of those instances as possible during the initial writing stage. However, you can always go back and revise areas where you can show rather than tell. That's why getting feedback from readers is very important. Your readers will be able to catch stuff that you might have missed. Will your entire screenplay be just showing and no telling? Of course not. It will be a mixture, but a scene will have more impact if you're able to visualize the character's emotions and actions rather than telling the reader about it. How do you show and not just tell? At first, the concept of show and don't tell may seem easy enough, but as you get into the flow of writing your story, this is something that can easily escape you. Let's give some examples of when you should show and not just tell. Let's say one of your characters just got news that her husband is cheating on her. Instead of writing, Jane is upset upon hearing the news of her husband cheating, a better example would be to show Jane actually upset. Maybe while having dinner, Jane excuses herself from the table when the husband asks a simple question such as, "How was your day?" Or when the husband decides to hop into the bed that night, Jane offers him a blanket and pillow and points toward the couch. In both of these situations, Jane is obviously upset and shows it by her actions. Common mistakes to avoid. It is important to remember that you are writing a screenplay and not a book. Most of the common mistakes some new writers make involve over-explaining the story. Your action line should be just a couple of lines and only have information that moves the story along. Writers tend to over-describe the story, which can lead to a lot more telling instead of showing. Of course, there are exceptions to this rule, and as you write more, you learn how to navigate the waters of writing tight action lines. As you read screenplays from other writers, you might see some of those writers write long action lines, at times in paragraph form. Typically, these action lines tend to describe intricate details about the setting of the scene rather than what a character is thinking. Great screenplay examples. Now that you know what show and don't tell is, it's time to give you some examples of screenplays that do an outstanding job of executing this method. The first one is A Quiet Place. This screenplay is a great study on how to paint a picture with words. The entire screenplay has very little dialogue. Instead of the writers using dialogue to move the story, they use the action lines to paint pictures of this world. If you haven't read this screenplay yet, put it on your list right away. The next example is Aliens. Although this particular screenplay has plenty of dialogue, the way the writer writes the action makes this screenplay special and a great example of how to write for the screen. Stir Up Echoes is another good example of how to show and not just tell. First of all, this is an incredible film. If you haven't seen the film yet, you should definitely watch it. However, reading the screenplay is where you'll see how this was written very visually. A lot of details went into describing the details of the world to open the reader's eye. As you read the screenplay, it will feel as if you are watching a painting instead of reading words on pages. These three screenplays are just some examples of how to write for show and don't tell. There are plenty more screenplays to discover that show and don't tell very well. It will be up to you to continue finding great screenplays to read and find examples for yourself. The next great screenplay that might be referenced as a great example of show and don't tell might be the one you write. For more articles like this one, head over to our blog, screenplayapp.info, and feast on all things screenwriting. If you're thinking about writing your first screenplay, go to your favorite app store and download Screenplay app today. The link's in the description below. And remember to always have fun writing. Fade out.